Hello and welcome to Cover 3 presented by Papa John's. I'm Manny Robinson with Scott Kiefer and Marcel Louis-Jacques, and we're serving up 3 slices of Clemson football, so let's get right to it. Under the lights, Kelly Bryant upstaged the headliner Lamar Jackson and took a resounding victory at Louisville. Clemson comes down off the Bourbon Trail but must avoid a hangover against Boston College. Through the first quarter of the season, they're 3-0. How does this position them for that early college football playoff race?
I think at this point you have to say Clemson is where it should be and where it needs to be. I mean, they're at a 3-0 start. You want to be hovering in that top 5, and that's where Clemson has been entrenched throughout the season, even in the preseason. So they're looking good. They also have a chance for some upward mobility and some resume building because there's 5 ACC teams ranked in the top 20. Boston College is not among them, however. So, if you look back in recent history, Boston College, when it joined the ACC in 2005, dominated Clemson, beat them 3 years in a row. But now it's a different game. Matt Ryan is no longer a golden eagle, he's a dirty bird. And things have changed in the past 6 years. Clemson has won 6 in a row by an average margin of 19 points. So I expect something similar. Here's what I can guarantee you. At the end of the day, Saturday, someone wearing a Clemson uniform will be sporting the O'Rourke McFadden leather helmet once again.
And you mentioned it, how right now the ACC has a few teams in the top 20. But I don't know if they've lived up to kind of what they portrayed themselves as during the talking season. Is the ACC strong enough this year for Clemson to get into the playoffs with one loss like they did a year ago?
Well, Manny, in a nutshell, no. And it really started in week 1 as soon as Deonte Francois went down. Then Florida State's the RO Florida State dimmed very heavily. North Carolina State was a trendy playoff pick. They haven't lived up to expectations. Obviously, Clemson is about as good as people thought, if not better. I got to kind of publicly put my foot in my mouth for what I said last week, doubting Clemson's offense could keep up in a shootout. 40 points, they set the tone in the shootout against what ultimately might be a little overrated Louisville team. So now we're just looking at Clemson as far as who can go into any other conference on any given night and beat everybody in it. But in my opinion, if they're going to lose one game, it can only be to one team, and it's not Florida State. It's not North Carolina State. It's Virginia Tech in 2 weeks. They're not in the same division, so in theory, they beat Virginia Tech on the road. They go on to beat North Carolina State on the road. They beat Florida State at home. All of a sudden, they're doing a little hokey pokey with Virginia Tech and Charlotte in December once again. If they can win the ACC, then even with one loss to a team that they went on to beat, I think we can still talk college football playoff. But that being said, it is week 3. So, everything I said can go completely out the window just like that.
Well, one of the last times we saw Christian Wilkins, he was doing splits after the national championship game. We want to find out what he's been doing since. So we interviewed Clemson's resident gymnast.
I'm hoping, the last 2 years I was, I was a little upset. I wasn't able to be quite that good to get the leather helmet, but that would be cool to say, against my hometown team and everything like that as well. And I definitely get a little more excited when it's time to play BC, just because, growing up in Massachusetts and in the New England area, BC is so big time for a lot of people. And, before I actually dove into recruiting, BC was always a goal of mine. And when you ever hear of anyone getting recruited by BC, you're like, oh man, this guy's going getting recruited by BC. He must be really good. That's the big time college program in the area. So growing up, I always wanted to go to BC, or I always was a fan of BC, and and I got really close to Boston College in recruiting as well too, to the coaching staff, to guys on the team, well, obviously I'm here now, but they were definitely up there in my top 3. There was a legit chance of me going there too. So, but I wouldn't change, anything. I knew right away, in recruiting, just everything Clemson has to offer, the total package. I knew was crucial for my development, from a young man into a man. I knew Clemson had it all for everything I was looking for. Regardless of, what I would have achieved on the field, I knew, I would have felt that kind of way about Clemson regardless, because more so of the things that, have happened for me off the field. Me graduating in 2.5 years, being able to get a degree is huge, because I know many people, it's not an easy thing to earn a degree, and there's a lot of people out there that look like me that don't have a degree, so that definitely holds a lot of weight to me personally. and just, you know, the relationships I've made, my teammates, those are my brothers for life. There's things that are more important to me than just football. You know, obviously I love football, love the game, love everything it has to offer, love to win, love to compete, but you know, relationships are the most important thing, and I feel like over the, you know, last couple of years I've made great relationships here at Clemson.
You know, as good as Clemson's offense has been through 3 games, there's still a little bit of a question mark right there at right tackle. I know they wish they could have Landon Walker back from a few years ago, but now he's traded the trenches for the pits on NASCAR's top circuit.
When I signed as a free agent to Cincinnati, you know, I had the mindset as I was going to make the team. That was the mindset I'd always had, as this is the way it goes. And they failed my physical the first week I was there and told me that, you know, my knee wasn't going to be long term. Then I was definitely at a crossroads.
My coaching background, I coached college football and I was in the NFL. I was also a scout in the NFL and I was a quality control with the Dolphins. So I did that for about 14 years. We were always looking for athletes, college athletes, because there's so many guys out there and so many guys can't go to the NFL or next level. So they want to come to a place that they can compete, still work out, and stay at a high level.
He called me and said, hey, look, man, this is how this works now. We're bringing in former college athletes, we're training them, we're putting them through workouts, we're seeing if they can pit race cars.
The speed of what's going on pit road has evolved into the athletic dance that we call it, using the athlete's strength, size, their athletic ability, footwork, quickness, all that is just an added plus for pit road. Out of 65 players, we probably only have about 3 that did not play some college sport. Landon fit the mold for us as a fueler. He's come in, went through the developmental program, learned the game here.
They put a can on my shoulder that was about 98 pounds at the time, and they told me I had to plug the car in as it was coming in. I'm like, what? It was definitely a wake-up call, I guess, into how hard it was to learn this technique. It's not something I'm just going to jump into and just snap my fingers and be good at it. I knew I had to show up every day, work hard. If racing is going to be what I'm going to put all my marbles into, then I'm going to give everything I got.
Now as a starter, he's been a starter now for 3 seasons.
I don't remember anything about the first pit stop I ever did because it happened so fast. And it was a 13-second stop, which is slow. That's what's crazy, is now we do 10-second stops and I can remember everything that happened. A 100th of a second, a 10th of a second can cost you a lot. You're not getting zoomed in on unless it's a mistake. You leave the car short of fuel, all of a sudden we're talking about how are we going to make it to the end of the race. The crew chiefs are strategizing, the engineers are trying to figure it out. And you're feeling like, hey, the microscope's kind of on me right now, and that's not a good feeling. Kind of like holding on a 60-yard touchdown. I want to do this as long as they'll let me do this. I love it so much, and the ability to be able to play a sport, it's not something that's guaranteed forever. Football was my life, and that was such a tough thing to do, was step away from football and go into this foreign sport that I had no idea, I didn't know anything about as far as the ins and outs of it. It brings me to really think about how important it was to me to be a part of a team at Clemson. You know, I look back on the games I played in, the practices. I may not remember a win against Florida State in Tallahassee or something like that, but I always remember the guys in that huddle. Kind of like this, what we do now. You know, I come into this and there's 5 other guys on the team. I mean, there's 6 that go over the wall. You don't just want to do it for you. It's not an individual sport. And that's a part of the reason they bring football players into this, is because that's something we kind of learn throughout our careers. You don't take that for granted. You know, you really don't, because I mean, you don't get that feeling sitting behind a desk. It's not something you can just get. You know, you have to really be in a team sport like what we're involved in.
Now for our fun feature of the week, we're going to bring in our nickel back, Elizabeth LaFleur.
Anyone who is familiar with Clemson is probably at least a little familiar with the Esso Club.
On game days, football especially, it's a madhouse where people come to buy tickets, sell tickets, cheer on their favorite team, drown their sorrows, or celebrate their wins.
Like many of the Esso Club's patrons, Candace Bell has grown up at the club. She started as a bartender 18 years ago and is now the manager.
It's changed a little, but it's still the Esso Club. It's still a place where family comes and where you build family working here.
The Esso was once a gas station that sold beer and groceries. It was established in 1933 and transitioned through the years into a bar and restaurant known for its Clemson University alumni patronage.
When I worked here in the late 70s, You'd have to run the cash register for the convenience store, pump gas, and serve beer to anybody that was sitting in the bar.
Punk Bodiford is a regular. He says he's been visiting the Esso every day he's in town since 1976.
Like I say, I live next door, so it's almost like an extension of my living room.
He's not alone. The club regularly welcomes visitors with stories from their past.
And we still have families that say, I brought my son here, when he was 2 in a wagon, and we're having a beer together today.
If you ever hung out here, you'll come back.
Today, the Esso Club has a home on the National Historic Registry and has become known as a place that is fit for fans of both the Tigers and their opponents.
I love hearing the Clemson fans just approach and welcome the opposing team. Notre Dame was unbelievable. We were so busy, and every Notre Dame fan that walked in, someone said, welcome to Clemson, and they were buying them beers.
On game days, it's like a giant tailgate. They put up a big screen so people can watch the game, they have live music at night, and they limit their menu so they can get food out faster.
You can hear what's going on at the game seconds before it actually happens on TV. So you know you're getting ready to be cheering really loud for your team or really upset that something didn't go our way.
With plenty of media attention, the Esso Club has become a cult hit among college town haunts, but Bodiford is still surprised at the popularity of his favorite small town bar.
Higby owned the place when I was down here when I started coming here in '76. And he always said it was the place to be in Clemson. This was the perfect location at the corner of Oak Street and Highway 93. He was convinced to be big one day, and I guess he was right.
Well, that's a wrap for us here on Cover 3, presented by Papa John's. For Marcel, Scott, Elizabeth, and Bart Boatwright behind the controls, I'm Manny Robinson. Thanks for joining us. Catch us next week. Man's a pro. That was good.
That was fire.